Have you do you play video games?
Yeah, very swans
You
over
ever
the years.
played Detroit Become Human?
No.
So it goes over this not exact scenario, but it's it's kind of a role playing game where you have these different life paths or whatever, and it's a world filled with androids who are very human like. The only way you could tell that they're humans is they have like this little light on the side of their head. That's obviously an android,
Right.
right? And
I've
they're
found it,
pretty
yeah.
much taking the entire job, like all the jobs, and like the humans are just treating them really badly. So they rebel and then kind of overthrow the government, and they're stronger than everybody and smarter than everybody. And it was like you play the androids and you kind of feel good, like, oh, I just liberated the androids. But then you're like, huh, is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to play
But
that because that does sound fun. But yeah, I mean, I guess the problem is, people are very scared of robots taking their jobs. But I think at some point we need to drill down and figure out what exactly is it that they don't want to be taken away from them. Because I don't think everyone loves their job to the point where they would do it for free. So at some level, what they're afraid of being taken away is money. But also some of it is something to do, some way of feeling valuable. Like maybe that's a bit different to just if you just got the same money, but you didn't have to work for it. And then, but what else? What is it? I think we're going to have to do some serious philosophical work on what it really means to be human and what it is we want. Because the idea that we can't let it take our jobs, it's like, well, so we're just going to do all these things really inefficiently just so that it's humans doing them rather than a much better system that we just made. And, there's all sorts of shortages of things that we're going to continue to have voluntarily because we just want things to stay the same. That doesn't seem like the answer.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Medallion Excellent podcast. Today I'm here with Andy Surtees, joining us all the way from England. He's the founder of ColabRating, which deals with AI. And we're going to talk a lot about if you're interested in GPT and what's going on there and all the various offshoots, and we're going to talk about that in the entire space. How are you doing today, Andy?
Very well, thanks. Good to be here.
Cool. So you are the founder of ColabRating. Can you tell me more about that? ColabRating.com. So it's a live product. You guys can go to it right now.
Yeah. So it's a place for people who make Colab notebooks. Google, people pronounce it Colab or Colab. But Collabs are basically the kind of easiest way of making a small bit of AI functionality and then sharing it around. So loads of people use this thing, but there isn't a kind of standard way of finding the best ones. People tend to go to, there's Reddit, subreddits where people find them. They share them on Twitter all the time. I thought that basically at this point in the history of AI, when the big guys are really making huge strides forward, and the open AIs and equivalents are really getting a move on with their products, large language models. It is a great time to give everyone else a bit of a chance. So the small creators of little bits of AI functionality that are not necessarily plugins to GPT or whatever like that are just little standalone things that do clever little AI things, including there are some open source LLMs and GPTs on there. I think it's just a great time to have to try and get those people together. So it's got a kind of initial attraction, which is it's a better way to share collabs anyway, because if you share a collab as standard, you just get the standard little Google Colab picture. It's not searchable. So the open graph and the schema aren't sorted out. And then you tend to find that people are posting some really quite good collabs on Twitter and getting very little back from it. So I thought if I could make something that would help to get that seen, and give those attractions to using it in the first place, then the secondary attraction, once people start using it at scale, is that you've now got all these small scale AI open source creators in one place. And then that's where the pun part of the name comes in, because it's not only rating collabs, ColabRating, but it's also a platform for collaborating. So it's dual meaning URL there. So that's what I'm trying to build. It's very, very recently released, but it is picking up quite nicely. It's gone from getting 0 users a day to kind of 300 in a week. So it's early days, but it's the growth you want to see early on. It's not it's not ChatGPT level growth, but it's trending in the right direction.
So our listeners come from different backgrounds, so I don't want to assume that anyone understands the importance of a collab. Could you break down like what a collab is and how it's used, especially in the realm of AI?
Right. So what a collab is it's a subset of a thing we call notebooks. So notebooks are a way, if you're a coder, of putting little chunks of code on a page so that they run in order. You write a little bit of whatever you want, Python or just a lot of Python, but it can be anything. Then the user just has to press that cell and that bit of code runs. It does a thing, like it hooks up to a GPU and it initializes some initial steps to make sure that your environment is ready to do what you want. Then you will give it some data, like you might upload a bunch of photos to it. That's a step. And then you'll run some process on it, like it will be, like I've got one here that I made, which is heart rate detection from videos. So you put in a bunch of videos of people's faces, or at least the faces are visible on them. And then you press go, and it will work through all of those. And then it'll spit out a bunch of more videos, which are the faces with a box around them with its estimated heart rate on. So that's a little bit of like a standalone little bit of AI functionality that might be useful for any number of things you might want to connect it to, for fitness tracking, or there's medical uses and things like that. There's loads of little things you can make it. Now, the point of Google Colab, as opposed to other notebooks, is that Google basically donates some GPU power for nothing to people who want to use collabs. So you can run any of these things on your own machine if you've got something powerful enough. But because Google, they've also got pro plans where you can get really powerful GPUs, but they'll give you a reasonably powerful GPU for free. So that means you can share a notebook around by social media, and that even if the person that you're sending it to is on a phone, is nowhere near a computer with a decent GPU, they can still run that, because they're just running an interface that connects to a Google GPU in one of their data centers near you. So as a result, it's basically the easiest way of getting from a standing start to a bit of AI that someone can actually use. So it's become really popular for that. That's why I thought that rather than the other possibility I thought about was trying to connect absolutely every different type of way that open source AI can exist, and kind of delve into GitHubs and things like that and try all of those. I think by forcing it into just the one format, which you think is the most popular format at the moment, it kind of means that from a user point of view, if you want to go on this site and try a load of stuff, there's only really a couple of things you need to know about how to operate a collab. You need to know that, you open it up, you run the cells in order, and that if you want to send it data, you've got to connect it to a Google Drive. Once you know that, you can basically use everything on the site. So rather than have it going into a bunch of AI where, you need to configure your local environment and then install things. And it's basically, it's the least daunting thing for a general user that I could put together. Is they're all the same type of file, they all run the same, there's only a couple of things you need to learn to be able to operate all of them. And from the supplier's point of view, you know exactly what we want from you. We want a Colab link. You can only upload valid public Colab links. If you try and upload anything else, it just won't let you do it. So we're trying to constrain the ways of it getting confusing and going wrong, so that you can, the underlying work shines through.
So let's say new users, people who are working on various AI models, and they use ColabRating. Like, in what way does it entice different users to collaborate with each other? Because obviously, different users are checking each other's Colab out on this platform. But how does that drive collaboration?
Well, I mean, from kind of the demand side, the thing is that you can search for exactly what you want. So you can filter by exactly what type of collab you want to see. And then you can see the person that created it as well, and they're contactable on the site. So if you start with the idea, I want to find a person to collaborate with on an open source GPT, then this gives you a list of people that are doing that straight away, because you can see what they've made. So if you want to go and find people like that, then that's what you do. I am going to set up another thing, which I think is kind of the final piece of this, which I'm going to call something like the marketplace of ideas. And it's going to be a way of actually coming together and forming a sort of startup on the site, on ColabRating. So basically a little bit of code that kind of sorts out how you would form an agreement with someone that you are now a startup, and who owns what and what the terms of everything are, and do that kind of on the site, so that you can basically, if you've got an idea, you can kind of go, I think this piece of software would be useful. You can then find people that are around on ColabRating that seem to know the areas that you need code to be in, and you can gather them together and start a startup. That isn't on there now. I'm trying to gauge the extent to which there's a demand for that, whether people really want that, or whether really, once you've got a list of the people that made the stuff and they're contactable through the site, whether that really is the whole thing anyway, whether you can work it all out for yourself from there and you don't need more software.
So what would be the end goal of that particular objective? Like, are you trying to drive more people? Because, like, I get your trajectory of thinking, right? Like, there's a lot of people who are interested in the same realm of technology, all on the same website. So instead of them working on separate projects, they could probably join forces and make things a lot faster. So would your end goal be to be like a fundraising type of platform, or maybe like a Tinder for developers, or what would your end goal be?
Yeah, I mean, it would be more like Tinder for developers, I guess, wouldn't it? So you're accept in large groups generally rather than two. The other good thing about collabs is, because all the cells are independent, if you copy everything out of one collab and everything out of another collab and just paste them into a new collab, that still works. It will still do everything the first one did and then everything the second one did. So it's kind of, I wrote an article in 2020, which I thought at the time was me seeing the future brilliantly, but it's turned out to not really be quite true. And the idea was that there's AI, GPT-3 had come out then, but hadn't really hit in the way that ChatGPT did. It was kind of talked about in tech circles, but, I didn't find, my auntie wasn't ringing me up to ask me about GPT-3 in the way that that sort of thing does happen with ChatGPT. And I was saying at the time, we need some killer app that makes AI super useful. And of
Yeah.
course, we got that, and it was ChatGPT. What I thought it was going to be was some sort of construction kit where you could basically name the functions that you need and kind of build anything out of pre-existing functions. Like the metaphor I was working with was for home computers. It was VisiCalc. It was the first spreadsheet that was kind of the first killer app where people went, okay, I can see why I'm going to use this now. Because spreadsheet, I can now do loads of different things with numbers. And there's enough number things around that having a spreadsheet's worth it over not having it for a lot more people than some of the basically computers were not a mainstream thing at all before spreadsheets back in the 70s. They were the hobbyists, universities, and a couple of big companies. And then it broke through and suddenly everyone wanted it because you got a spreadsheet. And then, of course, as soon as everyone's got computers, you can write all the market gets going and it all works. Now, it's turned out that actually ChatGPT basically on its own was the killer app that got everyone into it. But I still think that the ability to kind of construct other things, and maybe in the end, to be honest, what you're doing is constructing add-ons to a core that is still GPT-4 or subsequent. But I just think, I've always wanted to make a construction kit for these things, and I think putting a bunch of collabs in one place gets a long way towards that. Was that? No, I've forgotten what the question was now. I just ranted for a while. Was that what you're asking me?
Well, I have short-term memory as well, so I'm just moving on. But
that'll be sorted in the next version.
But I'm really interested in the way that OpenAI pretty much dominated 2022 because they started off with DALL-E 2, which was like a vast improvement over DALL-E 1. And a lot of people were using it. And then from there, it kind of like inspired Stable Diffusion and Midjourney. And then suddenly image generation became like the dominant AI kind of use case. And then they did like Whisper, which wasn't really, that well received, but it's very useful. And then
Whisper
they did
is amazing though. I was making speech recognition tools way back, and they were so hard to make, and didn't work most of the time. And Whisper's just amazing. But yeah, the Whisper kind of got buried. That solved the problem people have been working on since the 50s, and it properly solved it. And no one cares because there's 3 bigger pieces of news the same week about AI.
Yeah, and it's all mostly from OpenAI. And before we started recording, we're having a conversation how like before OpenAI started dominating the AI market, DeepMind was like the number one topic of conversation, and they were building out bots to defeat people in Go and in chess and in different like mind games. And then OpenAI, I guess because they're so open about like what they're doing, they just released everything. Maybe that's what open stands for, because I think a lot of people.
That's what they mean now. Yeah, it's not what they meant to start with, but now they just went. We do not, because like Google sit on these things for ages and kind of do what they call safety testing, basically to make sure it doesn't. What they're really doing is making sure it doesn't embarrass them by saying something hideous, and they sit on them for ages. OpenAI just says this might say some crazy stuff. Sorry, but there you go. Here it is.
Yeah,
and I think that's the open bit now.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to innovate in the space of AI, because like these tools are amazing. Like a lot of people are really finding so many different uses, and just it's like when the military released the internet to the public, right? Before the internet was just like a way to just transfer like bytes of data. Then the public came and started innovating. We started making, I think emails were already a thing, but we started making web browsers and images and text and all that stuff. So like when technology is introduced to the public, like innovation is just so rapid, and it's never been as rapid as it's been with the AI thing right now. AI boom.
Yeah, well, I mean the ARPANET and the internet precursors the military were making, that was late 60s, I think, wasn't it? 67, somewhere around there. They started making that, and then not that much advancement and then suddenly the web browser comes out in 93 or still thereabouts, and suddenly it's absolutely the pace picks up massively. But nonetheless, I still think even in previous booms like the internet and mobile, stuff that happened in many, many years has been compressed into a few weeks here. We think we've got this technology to a level of sophistication really quickly that is hard to believe. There's just so many new startups adding things onto GPTs and, coming up with the thing we all want it to do really, which is to be able to connect outbound to the internet and go do stuff for us, which will not be far off. But even like, if you look back at, if you go into your ChatGPT subscription and turn it back to 3.5 again, like we were all bowled over by 3.5 a few months ago, and now 3.5 seems so dim-witted by comparison. God, no, I can't be saving money here. I've got to switch it back to GPT-4. I need it to make sense. So just I wouldn't say that most of what the internet was like in 1993 was that remarkably different to what it was like in 1997. It was like incremental improvements along the way. There's 4 years of it getting a bit better. I'd say AI's come along more than that amount in 6 months, certainly. And it just seems to be going quicker all the time because every new thing, they're all machines for inventing the ideas that power the next new thing. So I think it's really not, like people have talked about the singularity before, and that it was what the singularity would be is when an AI can make more AIs.
Yeah.
And then it gets, suddenly the speed of improvement gets kind of parabolic. But I don't think you even need it to directly be doing that. Just the fact that all the people working on it are now using the tools that got created yesterday to make the thing they're going to make tomorrow just speeds it up incrementally. It's a very interesting time to be alive. I can see why some people are scared. Not so much of necessarily the AI kind of turning on us and deciding to consume the universe, but I think just that we're not used to this level of change in anything really. It's, we evolved for 1 century being much like the next for thousands and thousands of years, and it's not anymore.
Yeah, I think just with the advent of technology, things are just going to move faster. Like from the 1700s to the 1800s, not much change, but the 1900s to 2000s, like rapid developments, rapid change. Like if you were born in the 1700s and you took like a time machine to the 2000s and the 2020s, especially, like you wouldn't even recognize this place. Like you see these metal like objects just roaming the outlands, and then there's metal things that people use to travel in the sky. And you're like, whoa, what's going on? I think just because like the invention of AI kind of just broke open the whole AI gate. So now people are using like base GPT models and open source GPT models and adding improvements and, adding different things. And, like, because we live in this connected society, people are taking that and then building on top of it and then building on top of it until like we get to the point where auto GPT is able to supposedly run continuously. Like I haven't even investigated it because I'm getting caught up with all these other GPT models.
Yeah, well, I have played around with it a little bit. The versions that I've played around with of Auto GPT and Agent GPT and things like that, they do run continuously. They self-prompt based on kind of an overall objective, but they don't seem to be outbound connected to the internet at the moment, the versions I've played with. So they can say, okay, to do this overall objective, I would do all these sub-objectives, and they will continuously print, they'll continuously refine a plan to do a thing. The question is, when are we going to let them go and try that to actually do that? So at some point, someone's going to hook that up into, okay, now it's connected to an AWS account or an Azure account. Now it's connected to my email. Now it's connected to my social. Now it can go and sort of try and do things in the world. Maybe it's connected to my bank account. Maybe it's there's people that are very keen on basically it running a business on their behalf entirely. They just basically say instruction is make money, and here's my logins. Just do your best.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if that works, how does economics work after that? Because we've kind of got all these assumptions about how everything slots together in the global economy, and if that exists, it's all wrong. Everything we've based it on, it doesn't work. There's all these theories about why prices should be set at certain levels because of intrinsic supply and demand, but supply and demand are now totally off because the supply of some things becomes infinite. So you would think the price should become zero.
Yeah, I tell you what, Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, he definitely didn't account for this.
Yeah, I know. We need a volume 2 to figure out what happens. But then, I mean, the thing is, economics, as even Adam Smith describes it, is the study of how people use scarce resources. Mm-hmm. So if the point of this all is to figure out how to allocate a fixed set of resources between people with various demands. But then if you don't have scarce resources, or a lot of resources suddenly aren't scarce, then maybe economics just isn't a study of that. That's just a whole different situation that economics has nothing to say about.
Yeah.
There's basically, other than like air, there's really very few things that have been unlimited, and even then somewhat limited, and even then but so there's very few things that are totally free.
I've been grappling with this question, like what jobs will be necessary if we can just completely automate everything away, and how would that impact economy? Because there's 7 or 8 billion people on the planet. We're not going to just let the robots take our jobs, right? We've been scared of this in media forever. We're going to rebel, and then the robot police are going to beat our ass. So I've been trying to grapple how is this? Have you do you play video games?
Yeah, various ones.
You ever played Detroit Become Human?
No.
So it goes over this not exact scenario, but it's it's kind of a role playing game where you have these different life paths or whatever, and it's a world filled with androids who are very human like. The only way you could tell that they're humans is they have this little light on the side of their head. That's obviously an android, right? And they're pretty much taking the entire job, all the jobs, and the humans are just treating them really badly. So they rebel and then kind of overthrow the government, and they're stronger than everybody and smarter than everybody. And it was like you play the androids and you kind of feel good, I just liberated the androids. But then you're like, is that a good thing?
Yeah.
But
because that does sound fun. But I mean, I guess the problem is, people are very scared of robots taking their jobs. But I think at some point we need to drill down and figure out what exactly is it that they don't want to be taken away from them. Because I don't think everyone loves their job to the point where they would do it for free. So at some level, what they're afraid of being taken away is money. But also some of it is something to do, some way of feeling valuable. Maybe that's a bit different to just if you just got the same money, but you didn't have to work for it. And then, but what else? What is it? I think we're going to have to do some serious philosophical work on what it really means to be human and what it is we want. Because the idea that we can't let it take our jobs, it's so we're just going to do all these things really inefficiently just so that it's humans doing them rather than a much better system that we just made. And, there's all sorts of shortages of things that we're going to continue to have voluntarily because we just want things to stay the same. That doesn't seem like the answer. But what is the answer?
That's kind of no one get offended, but that's kind of the way conservatives think. Like that, they want to conserve like just the old way of doing things, and they're kind of they aren't really like fond of change, or at least rapid change, right? So
And it's not,
they
and it's not even a political, the political meaning of conservative. There's plenty of kind of traditionalist union types that don't want things to change either. There's kind of this opposition to change is not necessarily a political thing. I think it's a thing we all have to some degree, but it's a personality type as well. Some people are much more open and excited about seeing new things, and some people are much more scared about them. And I think it's actually manifesting at the moment because people will come up with reasons to do or not do something in AI. And you do wonder, to what extent is this kind of an intellectual exercise they've come to? And to what extent is this just their personality talking? Is it just people who are naturally excited about new things saying, I've logically figured out that it can't possibly be dangerous, which is where I've ended up. I am person who's excited about new things, and I think I've logically figured out it can't be dangerous, but I'm also aware I could be tricking myself into that. And then there's other people who are scared of all change, and they're like, no, it will definitely kill us all, this thing, so we've got to stop it and ban it and stop it. And it's like, have you figured that out logically, or would you have felt that about any change? I guess
yeah.
that's what we're getting at with just, it's sort of an
So
attitude thing.
so Elon Musk, he recently like made some kind of decree that all AI companies should stop like researching larger language models than GPT-4. And some people are going along with it, but some people kind of reject it. Like, where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to understand the kind of fundamental arguments, but I can't help seeing a lot of motivated reasoning in that as well, because that was an open letter between quite a lot of different people that have, a lot of them kind of have previous form in being scared of new things that signed that letter. And a couple of them in particular have a kind of business case for it, because Tesla, although people tend to think of it as a pretty forward-looking AI company, they actually messed up a little bit in the last few years. They concentrated too much on visual. They could have made steps forward using LiDAR that they didn't. And it's got to the point where there's companies that are now ahead of Tesla. Like Mercedes has got approval for level 3 self-driving. Tesla's still on level 2. And there's several companies that are at least competitive with Tesla, in some cases ahead. So you can see why. If we were, the other thing is like Emad from Stability. I tend to think of him as a kind of honest, straightforward guy, but at the same time, you can't help thinking that when Stability AI was the leader in image generation, he wasn't saying to slow things down. But now that DALL-E and Midjourney are ahead, now he is. And I wonder to what extent these could be connected. I'm sure he's not in his head going, oh, I can pretend to be worried and in that manage to slow other people down, so now I get my market leading position back.
So
the way your brain works is not always clear to you, and you end up believing what you want to believe and then constructing an argument around it sometimes.
on that point of like the lead image generators, although so from my perspective, Midjourney is very closed. You like no one knows how to create this amazing artworks. For all we know, there could be like a bunch of people on the other side just like reading your thing and then like seeing you off, right?
Incredibly
So
fast painters.
but like from an open source perspective, Stable Diffusion is like the leader. They like ControlNet. Like, are you familiar with ControlNet? It's kind of like like you can model like how the character is supposed to be, and then write in your text prompt, and then like it's amazing. And then these things, the A1111, it just makes your photos look beautiful, like Midjourney. Like Midjourney is still definitely the leader, but like Stable Diffusion has like, as far as open source and just community that's just
Yeah,
building and making
okay.
generations, like they're definitely ahead of a lot
I
of
know what
people.
you mean. Yeah, it is definitely arguable who's actually ahead. I kind of meant in terms of the main use case that the public uses, which is just put in a prompt, get out a photo. I'd say Midjourney version 5 does that the best right now. But
Yeah.
yeah, you make strong points. That is not everything Stability does, and they are. Yeah, I'm not in any way knocking Stability. I do think they're amazing, and we have some of their stuff on ColabRating.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of your favorite models. Like we talked a bit about Auto GPT, which is, have you heard of Chaos GPT? Like that's the one that's supposed to destroy the world.
Oh yeah, I mean that was just an instance of someone prompting. They named it Chaos GPT, but it's actually some other system that's been prompted with the overall objective of destroying the world, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is that
Which is it?
outbound connected to the internet? 'Cause that seems like that would be a really bad idea to connect it the first time you tried it.
I hope not.
Is that sandboxed or what?
Like that's scary, bro. Like it's funny. It's funny that humans' primary concern with AI is that they're going to destroy the world, and then there's a human who prompts AI to destroy the world. Like, you can't win.
Yeah.
Just can't win.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, because people spent all this time about what if the AI decides autonomously that it's a bad guy, and then you realize actually, yeah, you're just waiting for someone to type in, "You're a bad guy. Now do bad things." See, to what extent is it limited? Because for the thing is, there's so many GPT models out there that are open source that are, you know, OpenAI can put limits on GPT-4 as to what it will attempt to do and what it will refuse to answer and what it won't do. But there's always another model that is around the corner that's has, you know, they're a little bit behind the state of the art, but the state of the art's moving so fast that there's going to be GPT-4 level open source stuff that you can run in a Colab with no limits on it pretty soon. So you do. I do wonder, in that circumstance, what do I do? Like, am I still automatically promoting everything that comes along at the point where people are making very easy to run kind of doomsday machines in Colab? Or do I step in then?
Just moral.
And the question is, of course, if I just stop promoting that, there's no reason that's not going to stop everyone doing it.
Yeah, and someone might say, "Hey, that's a good idea," and you're not doing it anymore. I'll do it. Like so, it's a lot of moral haggling.
That's exactly what happened with YOLO. Do you know the computer vision system?
No.
Which was what I did before ColabRating was I was running SenseGrow, which is a computer vision company, and most of our stuff is based on versions of YOLO, which you only look once, which is a single shot image classifier. So some guy invented this really quite efficient way of telling the difference between objects and images. And he started that. But then he walked away from it in, I think, 2016, 17, somewhere around there, and just said, I've decided this is incredibly dangerous and I'm not going to do this project anymore. But he already released the source code to version, I think, 1 and 2. And so it has since been absolutely run with by the community. So there's YOLO at least up to, I've certainly used 6. I don't know how far they've gone up to so far, but it's now unbelievably accurate, unbelievably quick, and it took absolutely no notice of the originator of it deciding that it was dangerous and that you can't progress these things. But
have you seen Facebook's or Meta AI's latest computer vision model, segment anything model, where it pretty much I think it runs within 5 milliseconds, so it'll just identify everything that's around us. Like it'll identify everything I'm wearing, and like pretty much what it has depth perception, so it could identify like how far behind like that painting is. That's pretty.
Yeah.
That's pretty. I like Facebook. They also have that text to video model that they haven't released. But I
Yeah,
like
that's going to be cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
and Llama, like the journey of Llama was pretty interesting because I think they released Llama like last month, and then Stanford like kind of trained their model, like which was like a copy of GPT. They trained their alpaca model with Llama, and then they just had them talk to each other, which is I didn't know that that's like how you train models because I think OpenAI has a like it's you train these models, but you have humans like correct if it's right or wrong or something like that. So that
yeah.
vastly improves their performance. So yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty fun. Have you tried Bard, Google's LLM?
Yeah, it's roughly GPT 3.5 level, I would say. I wasn't blown away by it. It's all right. But what did you think?
It's not that great. Like I asked it like so I had Chat GPT open and I had Bard open. I was just like asking them the same question. And Bard like cannot answer most of the questions, bro. Like I was surprised how I'm able to talk to Chat GPT. So I said like, hey, what's up? And it's like, I'm a computer model. I cannot tell you what's up. And I was like, like, do you
Yeah.
understand what's up mean? Yes, in this current situation, I understand that what's up is pertaining to my current state of being. And I'm like, so what's your current state of being? It was like, currently I'm up, like I have time and I'm running. I'm like, so that's what's up, right? It's like, and ChatGPT was like, yes, that's what's up. But I
Yeah.
couldn't have that kind of nuanced conversation with Bard. Like every time I said what's up, it was like, I'm a computer model. Next question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
like I don't know what the difference is exactly technically, but it seems like it's got like a smaller token number limit for memory, so it's kind of not adapting as you go through a conversation as much as, and it just seems to be a smaller model generally. I don't know how many we don't know how many parameters either GPT-4 or Bard have, do we? I don't think, but I've got to assume that either 4 has a lot more or it's much better fine tuned. And either or both of those could be true. I don't know.
yeah. So what we learned from Meta's Llama model is that they have multiple parameters. Like the model comes with multiple parameters. There's a 7 billion model. There's like 100 something billion model, and there's like a very large model. And they said like it caps out as far as the amount of data and parameters that you provide to these models. It caps out like at around 7 billion, where it's just not like you don't really the model doesn't really get any better. So, do you have a view on that? Like, should we train these models at to maximum, or what? Should we limit
Well,
them?
I think what we've been doing so far has been quite successful, which is um, for any given level of capability, try and make that model as small as possible. So try and shrink the size of a thing that at a certain level. And then once you've got it to that level, you then make a massive version of that. And then, so you gain a load of capabilities and then you try and shrink that down. So I think that's broadly been working. So I think GPT-3 was actually a bigger jump in parameter numbers than anything else
Hmm.
because basically from 1 to 2, they'd just gone, right, well, we haven't made that much progress on tuning really, but we do notice that big models are better. So let's make a really, really big one and see what we can get. And then I think 3 kind of was the start of a kind of flywheel of, okay, now we understand how it works at this sort of scale. We can make that smaller. So I think there's probably a bunch of, well, in fact, there are some public 3 models, aren't there, from OpenAI that are various different scales. So on the OpenAI API, you can pay less and less and less for smaller and smaller versions of 3. So we know they have made those. And then you scale them back up again to get 3.5, and then scale. So I think that's the way we're going. And in fact, the number one collab on ColabRating at the moment is a version of Flan T5 XL. So it is, it runs on a Colab with the free version of GPUs. So we know that it's not GPT-4 level. It's maybe GPT-3 level, maybe a little bit past 3, but basically at any given level of capability, the size of the thing will get smaller and more available, I think. So you'll be able to get totally open source and very lightweight models of anything that exists now will in about a year be free and open, probably, and very easy to run on anything. That's roughly my guess. But then everything's speeding up, so that time might even come down.
Yeah. I'm like, because AI development has been so rapid in 2023, I wonder what 2024 holds for us, because like ChatGPT was released like November of last year, I think, like mid-November or something like that, and it's just been crazy. It's just been going so nuts, and I'm just so curious on what comes next. Does the large language model invent a better version of itself? And it's like, that's now.
Well, it sort of is already, isn't it? I think aren't they? They are training. I know Google got into some controversy because one of the things they were using to evaluate the quality of its own models was GPT-4. They were basically asking GPT-4 how good its own outputs were. And Sam Altman was kind of annoyed about that, but ultimately, why wouldn't you? If you've got a system for evaluating outputs, it's sort of like the GAN model for images, where you have a two-part system, one of which is trying to make fake stuff, the other one's trying to spot fake stuff. So they both eventually, over a period of time, get better and better at detecting fakes and also making fakes that can't be detected.
Mm.
So I think it does seem like that makes sense past a certain point to get, once you've got to GPT-4 levels of quality, then getting GPT-4 to analyze its own outputs, or, two versions of it to analyze their own outputs and evolve, makes sense, probably. But it is confusing, though. It's such a, even like you're saying, ChatGPT came out in November, or was it October? But anyway, it's pretty recently. GPT-4 came out March 14th. That is less than a month ago, as we see here today. And it has changed the world dramatically already. So, I wouldn't want to... You never quite know what's going to happen, but I wouldn't want to bet on things slowing down, I don't think.
Yeah, things are definitely not going to slow down. And to your point earlier, like, I definitely think Elon Musk and those other tech leaders, they have a hidden agenda, because like these LLMs, they've been out forever. They've been out since Google released something is all you need. What is it? Transformers is all you need. But
Attention is all you need, which was the paper that introduced Transformers. 2017.
In 2017. So these have been out at least since then, and then like just now
they've been being worked on. They haven't been in the wild to the extent they are now. But anyone that wanted to raise the alarm and stop things, they had plenty of times to do it. Other than, but I don't know. I mean, what's your view on AI safety? What do you think the risks like? You seem like the sort of person who's kind of optimistic generally, and that you're likely to, as a personality type, think the risks are not that huge. Am I right? Or
no, I think the risks are huge, but I think we have to go through those risks, because like it doesn't make sense to try to ban something that hasn't done anything bad yet, right? So I think we have to go through that risk and like really have an AI crash our global financial system before we can be like, all right, let's not do that part again. Because what are you regulating at this point, right? Like, are you regulating like AIs can't give you information. Like there's going to be open source models. There's going to be all types of things, until AI like starts to show really bad, start to take bad actions against humanity overall. Now, some
Yeah.
would argue by the time it does that, it'll be too late. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. But it's like, can you
The thing is,
pre-regulate what hasn't happened? Is my core belief.
and what would you even do? I mean, you could like order the breakup of OpenAI and DeepMind and a few of these, and that would slow it down a little bit. But there's plenty of other people working on stuff like this. How would you actually, if you were trying to stop development of AI, where do you even intervene if you're a government that's convinced that this is going to destroy everything? How do you
Yeah,
even do it?
yeah,
It's,
that's a question for them to figure out.
yeah,
Like I do not envy their position, but I hope
yeah,
they don't try to overregulate it to the point where only if you have to have this much billions of dollars to access these models. Like I hope that doesn't become a thing. Like I like it open
yeah,
sourced because at least we know what Chaos GPT is up to, as opposed to if
yeah,
Chaos GPT was in like a private company, like we wouldn't even know that there's an AI model trying to destroy the world, right? So at least it's open source and we can monitor it.
yeah.
Um, hopefully, the person who's trying to prompt Chaos GPT to destroy the world, like at least wants to see what it would do, so we can figure out like how we can safeguard against that.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I guess at some point we're going to find out how easy is it to destroy the world.
Yeah,
Like, and what are the proportion of people that want to give it a try? I suspect
yeah,
not many people really want to give it a try. I think a lot of people who are acting like they want to do that would actually stop before they got anywhere significantly near doing it. And also, if we know they are, I mean, it's not, there's all the existing laws still apply, even if you're using technology. You're not allowed to hit someone over the head with a rock, and you're not allowed to hit someone over the head with a, with a robot. But so at some point we can, we can regulate those ways if someone's very obviously going out to try and cause chaos. But yeah, I think you've kind of at some level just gotta hope it's all going to be fine, because I think it's the fact that they say what is it, to accept the things you can't change and change the things you can't accept. I think the progress of AI is rapidly becoming a thing we can't change. So we're
yeah,
going to have to accept that that's happening, try and get the best out of it, and
for sure.
quite possibly use versions of AI to look out for nefarious other versions of AI. Because
Hmm.
the machine you need to detect this going wrong is something that can monitor all the traffic on the internet simultaneously and understand what it's doing, which would have been
Probably.
impossible 10 minutes ago. But fortunately, we've just built exactly the same thing, which is why we're having the problem. So,
Oh, can you
yeah.
expand on that? What have we built? Is that like a quantum computer?
No, well, basically, I mean, yeah, maybe access to all the packets is not something we can do. What I'm basically saying is that with these GPTs, we now have the ability to analyze data on that sort of scale now, which would have been impossible recently. So I do tend to think a lot of the things that are created that create problems tend to also create their own antidote at the same time, because the thing that can cause the problem can undo it or can restrict it, and because at least can understand what's happening. The same time you make a thing that can do a complicated, difficult to understand thing that's going to cause problems, you've also made the thing that can understand what that is and go in and stop it, possibly.
For
At least I
sure.
hope that's right.
So I kind of hope that like AI hacks the banking system, because that banking system
Yeah,
has been like this, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality forever. And
Yeah.
that's why our transactions take 3 days to process, right? Because it's like built on antiquated
Yeah,
technology.
I hadn't realised actually in America the banking system is really terrible. It's not bad in
Oh,
Britain actually.
so it's not
The one in Britain, I can send you a. If we were both in Britain, I could send you money. It'd be there in 5 minutes through the banking system for no cost.
wow.
So it makes sense why there's so many people that are like the crypto is not as there's not as many real crypto people like hardcore believers that it's going to replace everything in Britain as there are in America. I think partly because what you've got there is really does obviously need to change.
Thing is, like,
Yeah,
yeah, we're just so like I don't know, man. I don't want to get political. And I don't want to like change the topic from what we're talking about AI. Maybe in
happy to
another.
get political if you like.
Nah, but but yeah. So what I've been trying to figure out is like, what's the current use case for AI for not just like not big businesses, but like what's the current drive, right? Because let's go back at the beginning of the millennium 2000, right? Back then, like the drive was like blogging sites were super popular, and then blogging sites led to like MySpace, where it's a centralized platform that allows you to kind of have your own blog type thing and start your own thread. And then MySpace led to Facebook and Twitter, and then that like led a whole startup revolution that gave us all these amazing technologies that we use today. So I'm trying to figure out like what's now that AGI, or not AGI, but no, now that artificial intelligence is so popular, like is everything going to be centralized to Chat GPT and Chat GPT clones, or like what's the new attraction for the website, for the web, is what I've been trying to figure out recently. You have any thoughts on that?
So when you say will it be centralized to like GPTs, do you mean will GPTs of some sort be in everything, or are you concerned about is it specifically going to be one GPT like GPT by GPT-6? It's just going to be everything's going to go through that.
Yeah, that's my concern, that there's just going to be like one AI that just does it all, right? So if you need to have a conversation, you can go and there'll be a chat bot that'll just have a conversation with you. You speak to it, it speaks back. You ask it for things, it gives you those things. Like you can order products from that application. You can like you can connect to other people from the application. So it as much as it's bringing more opportunities, I wonder if it's going to centralize the web in a way.
Well, I mean, it could. There's always going to be alternatives, though. I don't think there's ever going to be. Well, there's always going to be a way for there to be alternatives. I mean, you never know what's going to happen in reality, whether everything's going to converge on. So I mean, like ChatGPT or something like that doesn't really have network effects in its favor the way that something like a big social media company does, because it really doesn't matter if you're sitting there using ChatGPT, you don't know whether you're the only person in the world with it or whether everyone's got it, because you're just getting a text result back. If they do manage to then get network effects going like Facebook did in the early days of Facebook, where suddenly the value of being on it is increasing every day because of all the people who are on it, then if they can find a way to make that happen, then yeah, you could envisage one company kind of taking over everything. Did you see Elon recently renamed Twitter? So the company that owns Twitter that he owns is now called X, which is he's been going on about for years and years and years about making the everything app.
Yeah,
which is like, and he's very clearly saying he wants it to be like, is it WeChat in China?
Yeah.
But WeChat in China is a horrible thing, isn't it? It's like, it's sort of, the government controls this one point of access to everything. and can just turn off. It's like what people are worried about with central bank digital currencies. It's like, oh, well, you said something bad about the leader, so we're going to turn off your transport for a couple of days. You can't get on a train anymore. And, I really hope there isn't an everything app. Whoever's running it, nothing personal against Elon, but I don't think anyone should be running an everything app that you sort of have to use.
I personally do not understand what the hell Elon is doing with Twitter right now. Like, he changed the Twitter logo to Dogecoin like a few days ago, and just like, why? Like, who does that serve? I don't understand. Like, the price of Dogecoin didn't even go up that much. It went up like from 8 cents to 9 cents.
I never know whether he's all this stuff with Dogecoin is a kind of serious financial interest, or if he genuinely just thinks it's funny to put Dogecoin related stuff everywhere. I don't get what that bit is at all.
Yeah, like the thing is,
the only impact it's really had on me at the moment is Twitter ads are a lot cheaper than they used to be. So if you want to boost the post, you get a lot more views on it for a tenner than you used to. Other than that, I haven't really seen that many changes. But
it's just like his management style is just interesting. Like he's a billionaire. He made rockets launch. So my criticism is a bit timid of him because like obviously he's capable of great things, but just the way he's been running Twitter is just like mind-boggling. It makes me wonder, it's like, is this 3D chess? Is this like 4D chess that you're doing, or is this just random bullshit?
I've been thinking about this a bit because it's difficult to kind of fully sign up the idea that Elon is either a genius who never gets anything wrong or an idiot who never gets anything right. It's clearly like there's something between those two things going on. And it seems to be that basically, like, when he gets an idea that is working, he seems extremely good at accelerating that idea and making it really happen. Like with Tesla getting to the, electric cars are suddenly a normal thing and that you can use them and there's enough charging. And from a standing start to there, once this starts to work, you can push it forward really quickly. SpaceX, once you've got reusability working, you push it forward really, really quickly. But I think what we don't see is there's probably a load of bad ideas that haven't worked and have been binned that have happened very quietly inside his other companies. But when you run Twitter, those things don't happen quietly at all. They happen really, really loudly. Everyone can see what happens and everyone's got an opinion on it. And you've also built a machine for expressing that opinion as well. So, it all happens on the very place where opinions are spread. So it's possible to sort of try. Some people believe like basically Elon was a genius and then lost his mind. But I kind of think it's probably more that he's good at pushing hard on a lot of ideas, some of which turn out to be really good.
Yeah, he's
but
definitely
we're now seeing some of the ones that aren't happening.
I'll fail fast and figure out what the solution. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So any closing thoughts on just like anything?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, it's so difficult to predict where we're going. That's one of the things I wouldn't normally do at the end of a conversation like this is go, here's where I think it's all going. And all I can say is I hope it's going, that there's going to be loads of open source stuff. Lots of people are going to be able to contribute. It's going to, it's going to solve loads of problems that have been kicking around for thousands of years. And we're going to reduce the amount of human input that it takes to do everything. So suddenly humans are going to become like kind of as though they rule over empires of people, of digital people that are doing all the actual work. Like suddenly everyone is effectively ruling class because the entire non-ruling class is machines. Yeah, that'd be nice, but I don't know. Someone's always going to try and get their own particular bit of power going to a lot of people care about the kind of relative position relative to other people more than they care about their absolute position. I hope we end up with a load of massively positive sum games going on rather than people trying to play zero sum and negative sum games at the same time. We'll see.
Absolutely. And the question of like how it's going to impact society remains, as far as like,
Yeah.
like back to video games. Have you ever played Horizon Zero Dawn, or at
No,
least Horizon Forbidden West? You played that?
I haven't played any of those. I don't these console type. I tend to play kind of little weird strategy things rather than
Oh,
the big
okay.
AAA stuff. But yeah, no, tell me about it though.
Yeah, so pretty much the concept behind those games is that like AI went rogue, and the singularity happened, so it started like reproducing itself. And then like it was programmed to pretty much destroy the world, right? So it creates these like robot dinosaurs that just go out into the world and just destroy everything. And now humanity is now back to the Stone Ages, and they live in these little tribes, and they have access to semi-advanced weaponry. So like for example, they have a spear that you can attach electricity to, and then you can throw the spear at the dinosaur to short it out. So it has like kind of advanced futuristic weapons, but also like primitive lifestyle. So that is worst case scenario. And I wonder if that could be one of our futures. You know, that definitely gets me thinking like could AI get to a point where it just brings us back to the Stone Ages as opposed to bring us to like a futuristic utopia?
Well, I suspect not, but I have no idea. I think anyone that's any sufficiently detailed guess as to what's going to happen next is going to be wrong,
Yeah.
because it's sort of a chaos theory sort of situation where a few small little changes along the way could probably make a big difference on what happens. I mean, I'm optimistic, but then I'm always optimistic, so that's not information either.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely optimistic. I just keep these thoughts in mind because, like, we would want to get to a point where AI knows how to replicate itself, especially like with 3D printing. We want AI to replicate itself and 3D print itself a body, and then program whatever hardware is necessary for it to function as a robot in the world. And then, so my question is, when that happens, like, would the like would the robots be susceptible to hacking? Like, how easy would it be to hack one of these robots? And yeah, there's just
But no,
so much gray space in that particular scenario.
you'd think they could make that pretty hard to do, but then who knows what quantum computing is going to do? You're definitely going to have to do security differently. I saw the existence of, but didn't actually read a paper about how to do cryptography, even assuming ubiquitous quantum computing. I should have read that. But anyway, someone has written a paper where they confidently predict that you can still do security even with quantum computers around. But I haven't read the paper, so I can't tell you if they're onto anything. But I'll give it a look sometime. And you were talking about self-replicating things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you think about what the distance is between where we are now and genuine post scarcity, AI gets you a lot of the way, because a lot of the kind of digital thought work that you need people to do now, that's not scarce anymore. You can do as much of that as you like, subject to the amount of GPUs in the world. But you'd imagine that's a massive jump anyway. It's nearly post scarcity in that. You've pretty much got raw materials and land are the only two things you're short of. So if you can get self-replicating robots out into space mining asteroids and bringing some of it back here and turning the rest of it into like rotating space cylinder habitats, then you've solved natural resources and land as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, you could genuinely get from here to there is no scarcity of anything, and therefore economics is stopped in, I don't know, few years. I have no idea how long it'll take, but it feels a lot less far away now than it did even last year.
Do you just delving into the Kardashev scale for a bit? Do you know what Dyson spares are? Like
Yeah,
they they put
yeah.
these
So
like
it's a
solar harnessing things around the sun and pretty much block out the sun but powers the rest of the galaxy. Like I
yeah.
think I think that would be a path that we go down next. Because like
Well,
one of the
I mean, it depends how much energy you need, because that is an absolutely stonking amount of energy there, and you might find that actually we get efficiency gains and then fusion that mean that actually we're fine with the power we can generate here and we don't need to engulf the sun in Dyson swamp. But then, I mean, it depends how far forward you look, because if the population of Earth seems to be slowing its growth at the moment, but that's in some ways responses to scarcities. And if scarcities were removed, you would assume that growth would pick up again. So then if it does, then thousands of years in the future, there's suddenly trillions of people. And then, yeah, you do need an insane amount of power because they're all going to be on rotating space habitats. And you might want that amount of power to do crazy stuff like there's hypothetical faster than light travel modes that involve bending the universe but use an absolutely huge amount of power. So maybe you want a huge amount of power beyond anything that you would need for any of our kind of normal day-to-day use that we imagine nowadays.
for sure.
Yeah.
Pretty
There's
interesting
a
possibilities.
there's a podcast called Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur. Are you familiar with that? It's all this sort of stuff you're interested in, like Kardashev scale and far future travel and things. And
I haven't heard of it, but I will start listening. I'll check it out because I'm
yeah,
like
if you want
definitely.
some absolutely mad speculative futurism, then that's a great place to go. So that's what I would say to your listeners is check out my website, ColabRating, and also if you like extended term, the sort of things we've just been talking about, but drawn out into really kind of far future extrapolations. Have a look at that podcast because that's great.
Absolutely. All right, Andy. With that, thank
Been
you
a
for
pleasure.
joining us on the Medallion Excellent podcast. Learned so much. Everyone, check out ColabRating to check out just amazing Google collabs, specifically around artificial intelligence. And thank you all. See you later.